Daily Tech News Show is made possible by you, the listeners. Thanks to all of you, including Jeffrey Zilks, Alo, aka Adam L., Tony Glass, and we've got two new patrons, Brian and Adam. Welcome, Brian and Adam. Yay! On this episode of DTNS, we're talking AI. We're talking all of it. And buckle yourselves in because it's going to be a doozy. This is the Daily Tech News for Thursday, September 12th, 2024. From Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
From Columbus, Ohio, I'm Robb Dunewood.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
I mentioned we were going to talk about AI, and boy, are we ever. AI, it continues to become a thing that more and more of us are dealing with and loving or not loving, and we will talk about all of it. But this one hits particularly close to home. But first, let's start with the quick hits. On Thursday, Microsoft announced it had laid off about 3% of its gaming division, roughly 650 employees. This brings the total number of cuts in that division to over 2,500 since the company acquired Activision Blizzard for $68.7 billion 11 months ago. Head of Xbox, Phil Spencer, shared the news in an email to staff, reassuring them that no games, devices, or experiences are being canceled, and that no studios are being shut down as a result of these layoffs.
Astronauts aboard the SpaceX Polaris Dawn mission have successfully performed the first ever commercial spacewalk in history. Jarek Isaacman and Sarah Gillis successfully exited their Crew Dragon vehicle just before 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time this morning. The purpose of the spacewalk was to test SpaceX's new EVA suits as each astronaut performed a series of mobility exercises before re-entering the capsule, which repressurized after the spacewalks ended at 7:55 a.m.
On Thursday, the European Consumer Organization filed a lawsuit to prohibit in-game purchases in titles like Fortnite and Minecraft, claiming unfair practices and violations of consumer protection laws related to in-app transactions. The ECO submitted the complaint on behalf of consumer groups from 17 countries, arguing that consumers are overspending in games due to a lack of clear visibility into what it actually is costing them. The issue is particularly concerning for gamers under the age of 18 who reportedly spend an average of 39 euros per month on in-game purchases.
OpenAI released a new model called O1, the first designed for reasoning, which can tackle complex questions more effectively than previous models. While it shows improved performance in tasks like coding and math, it's also more expensive and slower to use compared to GPT-4o. The model utilizes a new training approach involving reinforcement learning and aims to pave the way for more advanced AI capabilities in the future.
We will talk a little bit more about that in GDI after this show. But for now, MasterCard announced it acquired cyber defense firm Recorded Future for $2.65 billion. This deal will enhance MasterCard's use of artificial intelligence to safeguard global payment system, which is its own, and there are others as well. Craig Vosberg, MasterCard's chief services officer, said, "Together, we will innovate faster, create smarter models, and anticipate emerging threats before cyber attacks can occur in payments and beyond." The deal is expected to close by the first quarter of next year. Apple's AirPods Pro have received FDA approval to function as over-the-counter hearing aids through a software update. You might recall last week that, was it actually this week? Yes, it was. It was on Monday of this week. What is time? That Apple had announced this as something that the FDA was expected to approve, but hadn't yet. I was one of many people wondering, well, when will this actually happen? So this is the first time a consumer audio product has been authorized as a hearing aid. The feature will be available on iOS 18, that lets users with mild to moderate hearing loss adjust sound frequencies for better clarity. Apple showed that off in its announcement. This development also follows the FDA's 2022 decision to allow the sale of hearing aids without prescriptions, making them more accessible. So this is Apple is certainly not the only company who can take advantage of this. But Rob, we talked about this a little bit in our pre-show meeting. You know, there are folks who are going to take advantage of this and have good results, right?
Oh, there's definitely folks who are going to take advantage of it, and there's a couple parts around this story that I am very interested in. One is that you can also use your AirPods to actually do a hearing test, because so many Americans, adults, just don't get it done. I think it's like, only about 20% of us get, hearing tests every 5 years. So there's that part. But the part of this that concerns me is that, myself, I actually have a hearing loss, and I have family members who actually need to wear hearing aids. What I hope this doesn't do is that people say, oh, I can just get a pair of AirPods, instead of actually going to the doctor, getting your hearing checked by someone who's done a lot of schooling for it, and they can determine exactly what is going on with your hearing and then give you, if you needed, the proper hearing aid. I do applaud this, because hearing aids they're ridiculously expensive. So for someone who's just got, like myself, who just has a minor hearing loss, these AirPods might actually, really help me out if I'm just trying to listen to a TV in a quiet room across the room. But I just want to, stress that for folks who, if you do feel like you have any hearing loss, you really should go to the doctor and get yourself checked out and make sure that there's nothing else going wrong, that is not progressive and getting worse. Because, like I said, the fear for me is that people will say, oh, I could use my AirPods. And it's like, that's not always the case. If there's an underlying issue as to why you have the hearing loss, you want to find out what that is to make sure it doesn't progress, if there's anything you can do to stop it.
I will say I hear that, Rob, but I look at it as more of a intermediate device that allows you to have essentially a medical device without necessarily having to sit through an entire procedure. For example, to get hearing aids, you do that. It's not just the hearing test. You got to get it fitted. I've known a handful of people in my life that have had to use them. But I think this is more like kind of those non-prescription reading glasses you get at the CVS or Walgreens, where, like, my dad, unfortunately I didn't get his eyes, but he doesn't need prescription glasses. He just has readers. And he's in his 80s.
Well, that's a prescription of sorts.
Well, a prescription is you go, they check your eyes, they write you a prescription for a particular. But he just uses readers. Like, you go to the little turnstile and you pick the one that fits you. And I think there is an ease of use and accessibility to this that I think will be more beneficial than just having the downside of people just like shrugging their shoulders. I got this. It's good enough. I don't have to have major checks. Which is not to say,
yeah. I mean, they're the AirPods Pro being able to help you with some sort of mild to moderate hearing loss sounds great on the surface. Rob, you're totally right that, if there is an underlying issue, is this going to get worse? Is there something else involved? You got to go to a doctor. But it's kind of like when my Apple Watch will say, like, hey, your blood pressure seems high. Yeah, and you didn't seem to be, running. I get that every once in a while, and I'm sort of like, okay, that is, something to, just keep track of, but it doesn't change the fact that I should go to a cardiologist, if there was an actual problem. And I think that there are a lot of things that, Apple wants to do this hardcore. I felt like the Glow Time event was very much like, get scared. Your health is at risk. We're here to help you. And that, listen, if Apple gives you good data, it's not a bad thing, but it doesn't replace what we've already got going on.
And I think people should understand, I don't think Apple is looking at these as these are a replacement for the Bell and Howell hearing aid that, your grandfather got. But again, these are just an intermediate device because people have these conditions, and it's not either you're totally deaf or you can hear perfect, right? It's a spectrum. So
Right.
this could be very much of this will help you out when you're at the dinner party. My parents used to have customers who had poor vision. They weren't legally blind, but they couldn't drive,
Yeah.
right? And they
So
needed some assistance. And this is more of an assistive device rather than a full blown medical, appliance.
yeah, I like your analogy, Roger, to the readers, which is a great one because if you just need a little bit of help, these things are probably great for that. Which, like I said, for me, this would probably work. But if your readers, if you're getting beyond like 3.5, 4, 5, if you need that kind of correction, you might want to go to an eye doctor to find out what your actual prescription is. And that's just what I would warn here because I do wear one, and I have family members who do, so it's kind of a sensitive area for me.
And I totally 100% agree with you. But if this allows, a family member to be an engaging, be able to engage in a conversation that involves them, that they can actually hear, they're not constantly mishearing things either from a lawyer or from a doctor. I think it's a positive, right? Just having enough information so a person can make an informed decision because they understood everything that was said.
Well, and the example that Apple used was it was somebody's birthday, right? And it was their mother was on the other side of the lawn and was talking and saying something really nice, and because of the AirPods, that person was like, "Oh, I can hear what my mom is saying." It was a very lovable thing.
That is very cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's very cool. I think that is just one way that technology that we want because it's cool. For example, I don't know where my AirPods are right now, but but I mean, I use them on a daily basis. If that can help me in any way, that's amazing.
So let's change gears a little bit and talk about a different technology, one that I actually want. Digital IDs are available in popular mobile wallet apps like Apple Wallet, Google Wallet. The problem is each of the states has its own schedule for when these things come out. And some states have them, a handful do, a handful more have announced that they're coming out sometime soon, but most states don't have digital IDs yet. That might be one of the reasons that Google Wallet is soon to add the ability to digitize your U.S. passport. When it comes to digital IDs, each state's DMV is the issuing party responsible for verification. Google, however, will ensure that all the data on your digital passport ID matches your physical passport, and such is not a digital passport or is not accepted as an actual passport. It's not a government document. So Google is working with TSA, and you'll be able to use this digital passport ID at various checkpoints. You can also use it for NFC to tap, or you can use the QR code to scan at scanners. But once again, it is not an actual government document, so you still need to carry your physical passport as a digital. If you have the digital version with you, you still need to carry a physical one with you in case they ask you for the actual ID. All that being said, physical or not, sign me up. I am for anything that will help me get through TSA lines quicker with less stuff in my hand. So if I can just take my phone and scan something or tap it and move through the line, I'm all for it. What say you, Sarah?
I say yay. That's what I say. I haven't been in an airport recently. In fact, man, I'm going on 2 years of not being on a plane, which is so weird for me. But yes, I have gotten used to the idea of you've got your QR code or just whatever else that, for me, because I use iOS, it would be, in Apple Wallet, or maybe I just pull up something on an email in my phone. I go through, we're gravy. But I would feel insane if I also didn't have my physical passport or driver's license or, whatever other form of ID I need for that particular trip. just because I need that backup. And that's what you do need. It's, it's not just, me feeling like, well, I need a backup, but no, you do need that. This actually doesn't work on its own at this point. But if all goes well, there's no flags raised, it can sail you through a line that much quicker.
I'm still of the, even let's say argument's sake that it works perfectly like the way it's supposed to. I would still carry physical ID.
Well, you have
because-
to.
Yeah. Well, imagine you either lose your phone, you forget to charge it, or something, and it's not working when you get to the gate. You're going to need to pull out a passport card, enhanced driver's license, what have you, and this, until this gets the full explicit agreement from the relevant authorities. I mean, you could show up and say, "Hey, I digitized my passport. Take this, TSA." They can look at you and say, "I need your passport."
The whole reason that you need the physical passport is if anything feels sniffy, then they're gonna have to see the real deal. But the idea of this is, you don't just leave your wallet at home, kind of thing. We're not there yet.
Well, we're not there yet.
For some things we are, but not for this. But it can just help the process of getting signed in that much easier.
Yeah, in the before times, I was on a plane once or twice a week. So there are times when you're in line and it doesn't matter what time of the day you're traveling. There's just going to always be that person is not a regular traveler and they have all kind of documents and paperwork and stuff when you're trying to get through security as quickly as you possibly can because you were running late to the airport. So for me, what I really like about this is that you can use it with NFC and QR codes, particularly the NFC. NFC is pretty darn quick. Usually, if your NFC on your phone is working and you tap it, that happens very quickly. So even if it's only certain TSA checkpoints, and I'm almost certain they won't be anywhere in the airport that I fly out of, maybe ones I fly into, but the ones when I'm coming home, if I can just tap my phone, and that whole transaction is done, it saves me 6 or 7 seconds. I am just happy because I got through quicker and I didn't have to pull out a passport or pull out a boarding pass because those are electronic now, or pull out anything else that I would have had to have used.
Yeah. And, you say 6 or 7 seconds. Some people are like, 6 or 7 seconds, that's all you save. But it's when you are stressed and tired and traveling, which, we've all been there, right? It's like, that does matter. That stuff does matter.
Yeah.
And I will
I've
say
been in lines at O'Hare with 600 or 700 people in line. So 6 or 7 seconds is a long time if you could speed that up for all those people.
Right.
I will also say this is, this is kind of an implicit indictment of how slow government agencies are on implementing this so that it is across the board and it is compatible with what the different agencies. And I think for a lot of emerging technologies or even established ones, but to kind of roll it into our everyday life, a lot of companies will kind of have to take the initiative to kind of, if not get the ball rolling, to kind of push it along quicker.
Now, I don't think that this is available on the iPhone as of yet. Now, the iPhone, I know that you can put the Passport app on there, so you can at least have a picture and your number, and when it expires and all that kind of good stuff. This is a little different because it does do the QR code and the NFC. And then also, Google announced that it is adding digital ID support for more states in the coming months. Iowa, New Mexico, and Ohio will join Arizona, California, Colorado, Georgia, and Maryland, who are online today. So when you name all those, it's like 20% of the states. The rest of the states have got to get on board, and it's probably going to still take years and years before you could just use a ID in any state that you're in.
Yeah, well, I remember the first days of Apple Pay, where, depending on what supermarket I was at, I was like, can I use Apple Pay here? Like if for some weird reason I didn't have my wallet with me, which was very rare, but it happened every so often, and sometimes it was like, no, only Samsung Pay. And now all of that stuff has become streamlined. I mean, it's not perfect. There are many places that you can go in and they're cash only. They don't care about any of this stuff. But it is becoming the norm. And I suspect that that what we're talking about as far as using a virtual version of your ID in places where, it really matters, where you might be traveling internationally, will also become the norm. Well, if you have thoughts on this or anything else that we talk about, one way to let us know is in our subreddit. Submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. See you there. All right. I mentioned that we were going to talk about AI in the show, and I was not lying. So patron David wrote in. A few weeks ago, I emailed in to ask you if you thought that AI music was going to be the death of the music industry. You said no. Well, I'm back being a doomsayer again. I've just been playing around with Google NotebookLM's ability to generate what is basically a podcast episode. Now, David goes on to say, I've been thinking about buying a pair of Ray-Ban Meta glasses. So what I did was grab links to all the reviews, load them into NotebookLM, and ask it to generate a conversation for me. Within minutes, it created a podcast episode where two characters, one sounded like PJ Vogt, which is, that's a podcaster that many of you might know, discussed the glasses with jokes and a great back and forth, almost as good as you and Sarah almost. This is patron David talking to Tom. Okay, so what we did is we had it ingest some information that we were going to use for our show, and the results may surprise.
All right, so we're diving into a whole bunch of recent DTNS stuff today. Like, we've got summaries we're going to look at, episode descriptions, even September's guest list, all curated, just for you.
It's kind of like your all-access pass to tech news. We'll break down not just what happened, but why it should matter to you.
Okay, so first up, something that's probably got a lot of you saying, hold on, what? It's that Android 15 delay. I mean, everyone's been waiting.
Yeah, and this isn't just like a small thing. This delay is a pretty big deal, actually. Mishal Rahman from Android Authority, he quoted his source saying, Google will roll out the Android 15 update for Pixel sometime in the middle of October.
So that's not Tom, that's not Rob, that's not Roger, that's not me, that's not Joe, that's not Amos, that's none of us. But it's a podcast that if you were to listen through, you would hear some little, some kinks, here and there where you go, oh, that's not what, they would say, or, certainly not what I would say, but not bad. Not bad.
Sarah, it has filler words. They were saying and like and
I know, but
that's
that makes it feel human.
It made it feel it feel good.
FYI, it's not just filler words. It adds, at least on the versions I did, I ran like 3 PDFs and a website through it. It will add background typing, like keyboard, like type, like someone's searching through it, just to kind of add that
very much like our show.
Yes.
In our post show conversations, it's like, who was typing? 15 minutes in. Oh, sorry, I was typing. I had to. Okay, so a little bit more about Google's NotebookLM. It features an audio overview capability that can generate a podcast-like discussion based on uploaded notes. So variety of notes. It gets ingested and then it becomes a show. 2 AI hosts summarize the material and explore connections between topics, trying to provide a conversational experience. You may like it, you may not, but it feels pretty darn real. Only supports English for now. Google reminds people they should always be cautious. AI may sometimes provide inaccurate information, can't be interrupted during its discussions at this point. But when I listened to this morning, and this is something that in our Discord, Tom actually sent to the group, and I listened to it, and I was like, "What the heck is this? Who are these people?" And he was like, "Well, they're not people. It's NotebookLM." And I was pretty floored. I mean, to the point where I'm not doomsday. To go back to our patron David's point, I'm not doomsday enough right now to say, all right, well, we all just have to get other jobs. But it was the first time that I was like, oh, interesting. This is pretty good.
One of the things you notice, having listened to 3, like on top of the one that Tom did, of which everyone listened to, I did 3 other versions, 2 based on PDFs. One of those PDFs being the Dragonomicon from D&D, which is like a monster manual, but just for dragons, and like a subreddit about tipping, a subreddit thread on tipping. And it's really good. It's very natural, but it's natural in a canned sort of way. For example, if you've trained someone to do some sort of hosting or emceeing or anchor position, but in a very rote fashion. And that's what you get. After listening to several variations, it feels all very sameish. And that could definitely be altered down the road. But I think what this does signal is that in the future, people will be listening for more unique things in the podcast that isn't just 2 people talking.
Well, it's like, I mean, how many times have you watched? And again, this format is not going to work for. It's only going to work in certain, newsy formats where it's sort of like information first. We are presenting information to you. But how many times have you seen, someone on TV, or, and, you're kind of like, yeah, they didn't do anything wrong, but there's not really much there personality-wise.
Yeah. As I listened to this, it was like, this is actually really good. When I just think about the technology, for this to be the first iteration of this, it's actually pretty good. And it's only going to get better. So who knows what this is going to sound like in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years. I do think, however, Sarah, you hit the nail on the head. This works for our content because we're very, very newsy. And we're going out and we're finding very well-established news stories where there's multiple sources that these LLMs could go out and grab that information from. For podcasts that are people who are getting together and they're just discussing what's on their mind, that's going to be a little bit more difficult to recreate because you need the people for that. And unless those people have created so much conversation that you can just approximate what you think they would say, which these LLMs, I'm sure we'll probably get to that at some point. I think that those kind of shows would be a little bit harder to do this with. And the big question is, what are listeners going to want? Are they going to be cool with listening to AI, or do they want to make sure they're listening to you and I?
And that's a great question. I think, for something like, daily tech headlines that Rob, you and I do every week. It's like, I mean, if a robot's doing that and the information is right, does anyone really care? I mean, it's not a personality driven format, but for a show like what we're doing right now, it is. Mm-hmm. And that you could replicate it, but you can't replicate it in a way that is going to be impressive.
I mean, what I will stress is this will probably alter the formats of some podcasts to move away from things that can easily be read in the same way that some YouTube channels, there was kind of a big stir like 5 years ago when people started using the generated narration for YouTube videos, so the person didn't have to narrate their own YouTube video. And it worked for some things, didn't work for a lot of other things. And so I think what you'll see is you'll find a portion of the audience that are just fine. Like, I just need the news. I don't care if it's an AI voice. I don't care if it's Robb's voice. As long as I get the news. They might be happy with this. For everyone else who listens because they want the personality, that could be difficult, even if the persons involved have to write their own lines and they have someone else voice it. That's still someone being involved with it that requires them to put their effort or their stamp on it, their influence.
Yeah, the other thing that I think too is that I would hope that people will want the thing. It's like, you know what, I want to stop listening to Sarah, Robb, and Tom and Roger And I want to start listening to AI try to sound like Sarah, Tom, Rob, and Roger, when they could just go and listen to us. I hope that is what happens. It kind of reminds me of that old movie, Rodney Dangerfield movie. I think it was Back to School, where he was basically faking a term paper, and he got the author of a book to write the term paper on the book. And the instructor said, no, he never would have said it this way. It is like the guy that actually wrote the book said it that way. This is what immediately came to mind. What would you rather hear, the people who are actually saying it or the robot that is approximating what the people might say?
It's like if there's an AI Rob, and I'm like, Rob, are you okay? I mean, you're not saying anything wrong right now, but you don't seem like yourself. It's like we're many of us who are in this line of work or enjoy other people's lines of work have to kind of ask ourselves, like, do we care about what a unique voice is and means?
I mean, would you care if a piece of article of clothing you had was actually knitted together by the fashion designer, or just designed and then sent through an automated process where a nameless, faceless group of people put it together?
That's a good point. Well, folks, if you want a recap of the week's tech headlines with insights into how technology affects and disaffects communities of color, then check out the Tech John, where host Robb Dunewood, that's me, Stephanie Humphrey, and Terrence Gaines dive into the top tech stories of the week, delivered from points of view you don't always hear in mainstream media. New episode land Tuesday afternoons. Find it wherever you get your podcast, or head over to thetechjohn.com.
The Tech John is one of the best examples of you can't replicate this with AI. You guys,
they go struggle on there.
Your personalities, no, it's you can't be replicated. It's a really, really good show. Do check it out. And also, patrons, stick around for the extended show, Good Day Internet. If you're not already concerned that AI is scary, that's kind of how I felt before we went into the show today. OpenAI's new model can fact check itself. Kind of the new normal. We'll talk about that more.
You can also catch the show live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 2000 UTC. Find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. We'll be back tomorrow talking about how food dye can produce see-through rats with Dr. Nikki Ackermans and Lynn Peralta.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.